let's get cracking. We'll start the conversation now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob Castillo, and I'm the director here at Larimer County's Economic and Workforce Development Department. Really appreciate you guys spending some time with us this evening to talk about the Workforce Innovation Grant. We'll be doing an overview of the funding opportunity and then allowing some time for some question and answers. A little bit of housekeeping. We are recording, so this session will be viewable by others who are seeking the information. We'll have it on our website. And then also for anyone who's on right now who would like transcription, you can go to the navigation bar on the bottom and click on some translation services. It'll be closed captioned for you. So just want to make sure people are aware that we do have that service available. So let's start with introductions of our team, and I'll go in the order of how I see people in my Zoom room. As I mentioned earlier, my name's Jacob, and then we'll go Mark, Wendy, and Cheryl, and then we'll get to our participants.
Hi, everyone. My name's Mark Johnston, and I am our Associate Director here at Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development.
Good afternoon. I'm Wendy Horst. I'm the Accounting Manager for the Economic and Workforce Department. Cheryl?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Very sorry about the technical glitch. Cheryl DeGrave, Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. And the technical glitch was my fault.
No mea culpa needed, Cheryl. It happens to the best of us. Now, Bill and Sarah, if you'd be so kind as to introduce yourselves.
Sarah, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Sorry, I'm at my house, so you get all of my Christmas decorations. I am with Boys and Girls Clubs of Larimer County, and I am the grant writer.
I'm sorry, who is that? I didn't understand.
I'm with Boys and Girls Clubs of Larimer County. I'm just the grant writer for them.
Got it. I'm Bill Stout. I'm with UC Health. I work for our professional development department, which is workforce education, in-house education, that type of thing. And glad to be here. And again, talking about the little technical glitch. We've been doing this stuff for 2 years, but everyone I know still has problems once in a while. So.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to provide just a high-level overview on the grant itself, and then I'm going to hand it off to Mark to go into some of the specifics around eligibility, and then we will talk about eligibility for funding as well. So just to begin, this is a great opportunity to enhance workforce development services in Larimer County. So to be clear, this is a workforce development grant. Through the state legislature, we were given $1.1 million to grant out to community-based organizations. This is federal funding that's coming to us. So please note that these are federal funds. The focus of these dollars is on 3 primary areas. 1, building in-demand skills. 2, connecting people to employment. And 3, supporting businesses with skill development. So those are kind of the primary areas that we're focusing the grant on. We are looking for proposals that create measurable impact. So impact is something we want to see, that are data informed and can be measured through data capture, and that support inclusion. So reaching some underserved or underrepresented populations or communities in Northern Colorado. I already mentioned that these are federal funds. It's also worth saying that this is a reimbursement grant. That means the money comes after it has been expended, and then you are reimbursed through Larimer County's process. That can happen on a monthly basis. And we can unpack more of that in the Q&A session if you want to spend time talking about what that can look like. The sweet spot for funding, we don't have a hard minimum and hard maximum, but where we're really targeting the dollar amounts is about $50,000 to $150,000 per award. Again, we will entertain concepts or proposals lower than 50,000 or above, but that's kind of the sweet spot for us in terms of funding. The grant application is open right now, opened December 3rd, and will be open through January 20th. Repeat again, December 3rd through January 20th. If you're interested, if you have an idea and are not sure it's eligible, we are doing a sort of conceptual review process through January 5th, where you can reach out to our team, present the idea, and then we'll let you know if and how that fits into the grant parameters. So again, kind of this conceptual review process through January 5th. So we're hoping that there's adequate time to vet ideas and maybe do a little bit of ideation with our team if the concept needs a little bit more refinement. So for any questions that you have about the grant, you can email lcewd-grant@larimer.org. And that gets you to our team. Mark Johnston, who you'll hear from in just a moment, is leading the effort for outreach and communication. So you can put a face with the name, but that grant email does go to a team of individuals in the Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development Department. The application will be available in both English and Spanish. So we invite you to look that over. If you or someone you know who will be applying for this is a Spanish speaker, please know that option is available. And with that, well, I'll back up a little bit more on the grant timeline. So I mentioned that it closes on January 20th. There will be a couple different review panels by subject matter experts, both internal and external to the county organization. We'd like to have contracts by the end of March and money or the awards. I shouldn't say money awarded because it's a reimbursement grant, but the awards out by the beginning of April. So that's kind of the timeline that we're working on. Again, happy to entertain questions on that at the end. And with that, Mark, I'd like to hand it over to you to go into finer detail on eligibility and other elements of the grant.
Yeah, again, thanks everybody for your interest. So a few things, eligible grant applicants. So imagine this as those who are leads on the grant proposals. We're looking to target up to 5 different types of categories. The first is community-based organizations. So if you fit into that, you're eligible to apply. The second could be public and private sector employers, employer organizations, or trade associations. So again, if you fit one of those, you're eligible to apply. If you are a third, an apprenticeship sponsor. Fourth, another Colorado workforce center. Or fifth, a formal sector partnership recognized by the Colorado Workforce Development Council. And here in Northern Colorado, I believe that would be the manufacturing sector partnership, the healthcare sector partnership, or the emerging construction skilled partnership. So from there, I think it's important to know that, as Jacob said, workforce development. And what I really want you to then imagine is who should you consider serving? So both of these populations will need to have some sort of economic hardship or economic impact due to the pandemic. And the first grouping is participants. So these could be unemployed workers, they could be job seekers, they essentially are community members. We need these participants to be 16 years of age or older. They also need to be eligible to work in the United States and have some sort of negative impact to the income in the household, not just the individual, but it could be the household, one or the other. And that's oftentimes seen, it could be a job loss. It could be a job interruption due to COVID. It could be a reduction in work hours. It could be a student whose parent has any of those aforementioned scenarios in their particular household. The second group then is employers. So employers would have to demonstrate for us also an economic hardship since March of 2020. That would drive eligibility for those you serve out of the funding. From there, the Colorado Workforce Development Council and Colorado Department of Labor and Employment have articulated 3 common focus areas. And the first one drives around kind of what I consider as traditional workforce development services, work-based learning, and I'm going to speak on that here in a moment, training completion, skill development, typically things in the training, activities in the training that end up with some sort of industry recognized credential that helps boost the employability, the marketability, the employment opportunity for the participant, or for the business's current employees. Also, because we know that upskilling and retraining is not just a classroom activity, it can happen on the job. So I'm going to share my screen here momentarily. So Cheryl, if I may, I'll need Cheryl to drop this particular screen. And then what I'm going to do is share the work-based learning continuum. And I'm hopeful everyone can see that. The work-based learning continuum. So again, it's part of that first focus area, really is this kind of matrix that the state of Colorado has helped pull together that really describes these different activities that could be allowable in this grant. And you could Google that, the Colorado Work-Based Learning Continuum. But to give you an idea, this is where we're talking about maybe a proposal for paid internships. Maybe it's worksite tours or a mentoring type of program. Apprenticeships is something in the region that we're looking to grow. It could be incumbent worker training, which is really just another term for employee development, existing employees. So definitely want you to pay attention to the Colorado Work-Based Continuum in any particular proposals that you would be considering. So from there, I think I'm ready to not share my screen.
Mark, while you're doing that, just so our participants know, I did put the link to this information in the chat so you can find that link there.
Excellent. So Cheryl, I'm wondering if you can help drop that. And I am missing my stop sharing. But in the meantime, thank you, Cheryl. In the meantime, the second focus area really focuses more on those employers. You can see supporting employers and small businesses. And this is where, for example, bullet number 3, if an employer or a group of employers would like to further their hiring practices by adopting a skill-based method, there could be a proposal that could fit for resources. That 4th bullet, that's another employee engagement opportunity where we take existing workers, upskill them, and ideally that helps with some upward mobility for the worker. And in turn, it also helps the business to create a workforce solution in their particular organization. And then the third focus area, the grant really does hope to see proposals that help to increase participation by underserved communities. And the Workforce Council goes as far as naming some of these, which includes, but are not limited to, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people with disabilities, new Americans, ex-offenders, older workers. But the list could be elaborated on with some sort of evidence-based information that you would share in your proposal. So that's a little bit of a deeper dive into eligibility, into the types of participants and employers that we could serve, and then a little bit more information on the scope of allowable activities. I would point out again here, this is, Jacob had mentioned earlier, this is a reimbursement grant. So for our guests, if you have questions around that, we could certainly field those. That's what I have, Jacob.
Thanks, Mark. As I mentioned, this is federal funds, so this does come with some reporting. So in addition to being a reimbursement grant, there are some reporting requirements. We're still hearing from the state how they'd like that managed, but we will do that with the grantees. So we do expect that anyone who receives this grant is able to track their performance against what they say their outcomes are going to be. We can help with the data management and entering that into the state's database of record. So just know there is a data capture component to this, as we have to be accountable to public dollars. So Wendy, is there anything else you'd like to say on the financial side or the reporting side?
Just a couple things. It will be a reimbursement grant. So what we're thinking on that is you could submit monthly invoices along with the backup documentation that would support your expenses. And the expenses would be expenses that you have included in your budget. So you'd have to follow your budget line items. We expect that the awardees would have a tracking system that's capable of tracking their expenses separate from other things that the entity does. And then there is also the 10% that is granted for admin on this grant. I think those are kind of the three key pieces.
Yeah, so I want to underscore that last piece just to make sure everyone heard it. There is 10% of the award that can be used for administration.
Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, a proposal could also, on top of that, include then the staffing to get the work done.
That's correct. It can be personnel, program costs, but personnel is certainly allowable, and that can be calculated separate and apart from the administrative line item. So I think I've gotten through my part. Mark's done his. Wendy has done hers. I'd like to see what questions there are. Sarah, Bill, if we can answer any specific questions that you have. We have about 15 minutes, or even if you wanted to get as specific as you're considering an idea, I think we have enough time to at least walk through what that could look like.
I think I just have one question right now. How long is the funding for? Like, is it a 1 year, 2 years? What does that look like? I may have just missed that somewhere, but.
That's a great question. So the funding, the deadline, we intend to award proposals April 1st, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And we intend to conclude proposals June 30 of 2024. Those proposals could range anywhere from 3 months to then the full scope of that time frame as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that long time frame. It gives you setup time as well as active time. Could you give me a few examples of what typical expenses that would be funded? I mean, I'm thinking about salary for trainees or whatever you want to call the people that are learning. Salary to teach these trainees, maybe some non-capital costs assorted with the training, materials, practice materials and things of that nature. Is it open to all of those types of things?
So Bill, I think how I might answer that, some common things as I kind of begin to hear your question. Resources could go for the direct costs of tuition or what we consider those training costs. That could include test fees. I believe it also could include the teaching salary to provide the curriculum. Also, there's a term that's called supportive services. And I could imagine trainees, for example, needing work clothing or needing basic supplies, tools to enter the training and be as successful as possible. Those are all allowable as well. Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe when we start talking about, for example, a sole source type of item, there is a $5,000 cap. We've had a few questions around buying a machine, for example, as part of training curriculum. I believe the funding caps at $5,000. Is that, can you confirm that, Wendy?
Yes, that's correct. I think on the last meeting that came up and we confirmed that you could buy equipment if you needed to, but it does have to be under 5,000 per item.
Bill, you could also another common cost could be a reimbursement proposal for a portion of the employee's wage. So in an on-the-job training model, oftentimes there's recognition that a new employee is not fully trained to be able to be independent. So a subsidy oftentimes of up to 50% of the employee's wages is something that could be considered. We're in a internship model that oftentimes looks like essentially a full subsidy, where someone would need to become an employer of record, pay workers' compensation and taxes, and then could pay the wages of the particular trainee. So we've seen that happen in a few different ways.
Okay, that's all very helpful. We've got several possible ideas, but the main one right now I'm working on is in-house training that would be done by our existing employees. We would hire people, and this goes back to Jacob's kind of invitation to brainstorm with you now. We would hire people that do not have a credential, such as a certified nurse assistant, but we would pay them a salary and train them to do the work during their first 6 weeks or so at no cost to them. And so, I mean, that's kind of the idea of something we're thinking about now. It's a little different from other CNAs because the employee wouldn't need to have the certificate already when they started.
Got it.
And what I'm thinking about right now is some training materials and equipment, and I understand the $5,000 cap, which would be very helpful. Some partial payment or full payment for those trainees during that training time, and some payment of our staff for their hours of teaching, planning curriculum and teaching, that type of thing. Is that in the ballpark?
Those all sound like allowable activities, Bill.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I do think when we think of it, employee engagement or incumbent worker, we're oftentimes looking for skill level advance.
Mhm.
So making sure there's some skill level gain, that end credential outcome, which you described. And then typically in incumbent worker, we see some sort of wage gain. Again, upward mobility from prior to the start of the training conclusion. And then that comes with some sort of merit increase.
Okay.
Just keep those in mind if that's helpful as well.
And
Okay.
Bill and Sarah, I just want to let you guys know, we're able to do this kind of exchange and on ideas right now. Wendy, Mark, Cheryl, and myself are not the arbiters of who gets the funding. So I just want to be clear. We're not telling you this is a good idea, go forth, and the expectation is that it'll get funded, or the opposite scenario. There's outside folks who are going to be helping us as subject matter experts. So that's what gives us the opportunity to have this exchange now. Just want to be clear that we're not advising on the proposals and making the decisions on proposals.
Got it. That's helpful and understood. I guess I'm just trying to see what you roll your eyes at.
Nothing so far, Bill. Yeah, everything you outlined seems like it fits right within those allowable activities.
Okay, and I don't mean to dominate this, Sarah. I have another question. When you talk about metrics, could it be something fairly simple, as in we intend to hire 50 people by a date, and so we count the number of people that actually go through the training, get hired, we would have their starting and ending wage, that kind of information? Is that maybe a little more information, but I mean, I'm not looking at something that's real difficult to measure.
Yeah, that's a great question, Bill. And I think we're still seeking a little bit of that kind of data reporting information from our partners. However, I do think again, in this kind of proposal imagination, we'd probably be some sort of application to collect the information of the student or the employee. We'd have to build a data sharing agreement so that you could then move those applications to our department so we can help put it in the state reporting system. And then really, like you've described, metrics on the training, the start date, the end date, the outcome, the wage gain. And I do believe we would probably need to verify the authorization to work. So some HR related documentation, and then quarterly report. And we would try to keep that as simple as we can, but then you would kind of share the story each quarter, of course, things that are working, any technical assistance you may need along the way, et cetera.
Okay.
Mark, I'd add the attestation on, some level of COVID impact, either to themselves or in their household. And Mark went through some of that information earlier on what that could look like.
Yep. Thank you, Jacob. Yeah, we would likely provide you with that attestation as well, Bill.
Well, and I think you just answered another question I had, and that would be our business, UC Health, has definitely been impacted by COVID. It's pretty easy to document that. So even if the company is impacted, we still need to show each individual is impacted as well, correct?
That's a fabulous question.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, great.
Business only or participant.
Okay.
Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah, that's an important nuance. I glossed over that. That's a really important one.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we could definitely gather an attestation if it's there. I mean, to track and just find that out, it'd be an interesting thing to know.
Yeah.
But it gives you more flexibility obviously, when you're just trying to fill your employment ranks, if you don't have to do that.
Yep.
Um,
Bill, if I may, for our audience who may be listening at a later date, it's also so participant impact or business impact. And then I believe that if the business cannot demonstrate the impact, but they can demonstrate the participants that they're serving, that could be an eligible person as well. So a little tiny nuance, but that nuance could make a difference for an employer who's thinking about how to attract talent through a workforce development initiative.
Great. I'll shut up now and let Sarah ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that I have. I'm actually going to I was trying to gather information and then I'm going to take it to our HR folks to tell me what their ideas are. So I think that's pretty much, I guess I did have one other question. What would you consider an employer hardship? Or do you have like examples of what that would be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would think, one would be a profit loss statement. And really, and mind you, anytime during the pandemic, if we can demonstrate some sort of financial impact, it could be an impact on giving. So when I think of a CBO, if we could see maybe a giving, 2019, here was a giving year. 2020, we saw a sizable reduction, and therefore our budget was reduced. I think that could also be another common one. Jacob or Wendy, anything else come to mind for you on that?
I think the most obvious is the demonstrable show of loss of income or revenue. There may be other ways to show it, through workforce attrition. I'm reluctant to go too far out on a limb on what this could look like, because I think we may have to take some of this back up to the state and get guidance for some employer impacts that aren't as obvious as, loss of income. But we're open. So our goal in this process is to find ways to say yes to great proposals that help us with workforce challenges in Northern Colorado, not to say no. So we're open to ideas. And if there's other ways that this could be interpreted, we're happy to look at those and then take them to the ultimate deciders at the state.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Well, I'm going to hang around a little bit. I think Mark, Wendy, and Cheryl will do the same. Bill and Sarah, you guys are welcome to hang out. Keep asking questions. We're here as long as you need us. Actually, Mark does have to go. I know he's got an engagement, but happy to stay online. But if you guys don't have any other questions, we're also happy to call it a night.
Thanks. I really appreciate the consultative approach to this rather than asking us to take shots in the dark. It makes our jobs a lot better, a lot easier as grant seekers. I don't have any more questions at this time about UC Health, but if you can hang around, Jacob, as you mentioned, I might put on my healthcare sector hat and brainstorm with you a minute. I was just on the phone this morning to someone from the healthcare sector, telling them about this grant, what I already knew.
Great.
So thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay on, Bill.
Oh, good too, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, nice to connect.
Thanks, Sarah.
Good night.
And Jacob, Wendy, Bill.